Hello, today we'll be looking at algebraic process, simplification and substitution. So let's go straight into it. Okay, let's start with it. So just like we said earlier, algebraic processes. So let's call it one. Algebraic process is one. So under it, we are going to be looking at simplification, simplification and substitution. Okay, let me put this in brackets. Now, so let's start with use of letters. Use of letters. In mathematics, we make use of letters, alphabets a lot, where we use alphabets to represent values of numbers. So let me write this out. Okay, so it says what algebra uses letters of the alphabet to represent general numbers. The easiest way of dealing with letters that represent number is to imagine that a letter stands for a particular for a particular number. So in mathematics we use letters, we use alphabets to represent to represent numbers. It helps out, makes our working very easy. Let's take example. Let's take example. That's why we see sometimes we have a a equal to a equal to 9. So this 9 this a is what is used to represent 9. So it's helping to what to save the value of 9. So and there are times you use it to make unknown numbers. X is unknown. So let's take example on this to make it so we get it more. So example, let's take this. Express p meters in centimeters. So since we know that what 1 meter 1 meters is equal to what 100 centimeter. So we know this. So if this is 2 meters, so what will we have here? So automatically we have what 100. This 100 is timesing, no, this 100 centimeter is timesing 2 meters, which is going to give us what 200 centimeters. Now same go with 3 meters. So we still use the 100 to multiply, still 100 to multiply the 3 meters, which is still going to give us what 300. It's going to give us 300 centimeter. Now let's now use the p now, express p meter in centimeter. So let's now express that now. So we have p meters equal to what the same thing, 100 multiplied by the p is giving us what in p meters. Now it's going to give us what 100 p centimeters. So that's the representative. Just like I said here, x could be unknown in this aspect. Now p is unknown. Now we are putting the p here. So p is representing the unknown now. So 100 times p meters give us 100 centimeters, 100 p centimeters. Now, anytime we decide to put value for this p, either 5, if you put 5 here, that means 5 times this gives us what 500 centimeters. Now 5 is now replacing the p because what we use p as unknown initially. As simple as that. Now if you notice here now, we have what 100 100p. 100p is short for 100p is short for 100 times p. So anytime we see 100p, so it is a short of what? 100 times p. As simple as that. So 100 100p is the same as what? 100 is the same as saying 100 is what? Is the coefficient. Okay, it's called coefficient. It's called coefficient of what? Of p. So 100 is the coefficient of, in this aspect now, 100 is the coefficient of p here. Very simple. 100 is what? Is the coefficient of p. So we use p in what? To represent the unknown here. So p here is what? 100p here is the short for 100 times p. So here is 100 is called the coefficient of p. So the coefficient of p, when you ask what's the coefficient of p, coefficient of p is what? Is 100. So let's continue. Let's take another example. Okay, let's look at this question together. In a class of p students, the average mark is x, and in another class of n students, the average mark is y. What is the average mark for both classes? Now, when we look at this now, we notice there is no number here. In a class of p students, there is a particular number for this student, but what? P is representing that number or the value. So P is representing the value for the numbers of students here. So in a class of P students, the average mark is X, unknown, and is being represented with letter X. And in another class of N students, so the same thing is happening here. N students, the average mark is Y. So these are, let me circle this out. So from here now, we have the letters used to represent the unknown values are P, X, N, and Y. So from here now, first of all, to solve this question, we must understand it. So solution. Solution. So first of all, understand the question. In a class of P students, the average mark is X. So we have total number of students, and they have average mark of X. And in another class, so that's the first class, we have another class again. In another class, in in another class of n students, the average mark is Y. What is the So we are through. We have the first class, the second class, then we move to the next sentence. It says what is the average mark for both classes? That's the question in this example. The question is, what is the average mark for both classes? So here we already know the average mark for the first class. We know the average mark for the second class. But here now, what is now the average mark for the two classes? From here, let's write. So the question here is what? Average mark for both classes. That is the question here. This is what we want to look for. But to get this, we have what? A formula for finding average. Average, for us to find average, we know is what? Sum of value over number of value. Okay, let's write for this one first. So sum of value over numbers of value. So if you say sum of value, what is the sum of the values here? It is what? The total mark scored. That is the value. The mark scored are the value. So total mark score are the sum of value. So total mark score, the total mark scored are the then the next over numbers of students. over number of students. So this will help us to what, to get our answer. So okay, but for more understanding, let me explain a bit further. We know average, finding average of anything, we know is what, sum of values. There will be surely a value all over what, numbers of values. So for example, in a class of four students, let's say names, let's write the names. So in the first, we have the first student John, the second student Peter, the third student, let's say Mark, and the fourth student Joy. So from here, a score John is having a score of 5, Peter is having a score of 6, Mark is having a score of 2, and Joy is having a score of 8. Now, looking for the average now, if you're asked to find the average of this, how do we find the average? So we know our formula says what? Average equals to sum of value. What are the values? These are the values here. Sum of value is going to be 5 plus 6 plus 2 plus 8. This is the sum of value all over what? The numbers of what? Numbers of value. What are the numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the four numbers of students that have this value. So we have it here, 4, all over 4. So now we go finding the average of this. Now is going to give us what? Equal to, what is the sum of this? 5 plus 6 is going to give us 11. 11 plus 2 is going to give us 13. 13 plus 8 give us 21. So 21 all over 4. So if we divide this now, dividing this, 21 all over 4 will give us what? Can use our calculator to get the answer. It's going to give us 5.25. That is how to find average. Now applying this same method now to this our question, but this time around, this our question is not having value. Our question is not having numbers. It's having just, we are using p's, letters to represent those values. So this time around, we will not solve it out. We are going to put those values, those letters p, x, n, y, into our workings to get our words, to get our final answer. So let's start. So in the first class, the total mark is going to be what? The total mark, the total mark scored is going to be what? P times x. This is going to be the total mark scored in the first class. Now, how do we get p times x? So let's explain. So we have what? Just our formula is telling us average is equal to what? Total number scored. Let me write it with, okay. Average equal to total number scored. The total mark. Let me use mark. Total marks scored all over number of students. Now, in our question, let's go back to our question. We notice what? In our question, we have, in our question here, in our question, say in a class of p students. So we have the numbers of students. So for this value now, we have p. We have p for this value, number of students. Here, our question gave us already in a class of p students. So that's the numbers of students. The average mark is x. So the average now, if you come back to this now, average is what? Is x. But we are not giving the total score. So total score is not given. The total mark scored is not given. So from here, we have what? We all over 1. We can cross multiply here. So total score is, when we cross multiply, we now have total scored equal to what? This and this come together. So we have what? P times x. I can also write x times p. Any of it goes, but I want to write the letters that come first. P come before x. Yes. So p times x. So I can also write x times p. So this is the total score for the first was equal for the first class. So I can call it T1 equal to P times X. So I have gotten my total score for the first class. Then I go to the second class too. I go to the second class. For the second class, total score I can say T2 equal to what? The same thing that happened here, we are doing it here too. If we from here, the total mark scored for the average now, total mark score is what you are looking for, T2. Number of students here now. In this time, in this for the second now, and in the other class of n students. So total mark of students here is going to be n. The total number of students, is n. The average mark is going to be y. So we are going to write it. It's going to be what? N times y. Using the same process, we get T2 equal to n times y. Then what do we do now? We do for the what? We have done this for the first class, the second class. Now for both classes now. So we are going to write both classes. We are still coming for, remember, we are looking for average mark for both classes. But here we are looking for the what? The total score, so that we can get our what? Average mark. So here we have what? Both class, both both classes now. Both classes, comma, let me put, so for both classes, let's put T total. So we want to total the two classes now. So for this now, for us to bring the two classes together, we add it up, the total for the two classes. What is the total? T1 plus T2. What is T1? T1, remember, we can simply write this as px, remember. And this one too, we can also simply write it as what? Ny. From our explanation, if back here we talk about what? 100p short for 100 times p. So the same thing here we just did here. So px, and so the same thing here, px and what? Ny. So let's continue. So for this place now, we know that what the total is going to be what? Px, that's what? T1 plus T2. What is our T2? Ny. So we've gotten what? Both classes, the total for it now. Now we use the formula again, average. The formula for average to get what? The question that is asked. Average mark for both classes. Now for average mark now for both classes, average mark for both classes is going to be equal to, now what is our what? Total mark. The total mark for the classes are what? This. So we have what? P px plus ny all over. Now the next, what is going to be below? Number of students. So number of students, what is the number of students? First here we come here, the first class, what is the number of students in a class? In a class of p students. So the first class is what? P. So we come here, the p here plus, then the second class of n students, p plus n. This is our final answer. So this is our final answer. We have what? Our average now, average for both classes now. Average for both classes is going to give us what? Px plus ny all over p plus n. That is our final answer. Okay, that is that. Let's take another example. Okay, so let's look at this now. In this question, we have a student has 200 naira in Nigeria currency. A student has 200 naira. If someone give her 160 naira, how much will she have? That's the first part of the question. She's having, so just like I said, first of all, we have to understand the question, then we solve. So first of all, here what a student is having 200 naira. If someone is giving her 160 naira, how much will she have? That's the first part of the question. Now we have to go to the second part. If someone gives her X naira, how much will she have? So let's solve. Let's solve. Now, for the first part, we have what a student have 200 naira. So the student, let's just represent with S student. She's having 200 naira. And someone, let's represent the someone. Let's say the person is A, Mr. A or Mrs. A. A gave her 160 naira. Now, how much is he having? The first question, how much will she have? So for us to know the amount she's having, we add this up. So this we are going to have what 200 naira plus 160 naira. So we are going to have what all together from here 063 naira. So this is the answer for the first part of the question. Now we go to the second part of the question. So we go again. She is having 200 naira. Now the second part says what if someone gives her X naira. So let's say someone is maybe he or she, let's say Mr. A or Mr. B is what Mr. B or Mrs. B. The first one is A. Now we are going to let's use B to represent the second person. So this person now is giving her X naira. Now the question is, how much will she have? How much will she have? So we add up again. So for this part now, if we want to add up, unlike here where we are having numbers, these two are numbers, but this one now we don't know the exact value. So our answer here is going to give us what 200 plus X naira. That's going to be our answer. We can put this in bracket. So this is going to be our answer for this. So since we don't know the value at the end of our solving, we are going to write 200 plus X. So that is the answer for that. Later on, if the value is known, we just put it. If the value is 1, we put 1 here. If you add 1 to 200, it will give us 201 naira. So for here, we are having what? We just write our what? 200 plus X, and that is our final answer. So this is the first answer, and this is the second answer. So this is to explain how letters are used to represent numbers. Alphabet are used to represent numbers. So here it helps easily where we have x is equal to px and 100x and 200x. So we know that what that x is used for is representing a value. So let's take a question. At this point, we are going to stop here. We are going to stop at this point. Then I'm going to write out some questions. We try it and see if we can get it. I'll write the question and the answer. If we did not get it, the questions correctly, we'll check the answers. If we did not get it, just drop a comment in the comment section. Then we will solve it. We will find a time to solve it together, and we'll post. If you enjoy this class, subscribe, like, and share this video. So let's go to the question. Let's go to the question part. I'm going to write it. Then we'll try and solve it. If we have any difficulty in any part, we can just drop in the comment section. Then we are going to solve. We're going to solve it together. we'll find a time, then we're going to what, solve it together. So let's take the first question. So let's take 2 or 3 questions. No answers. Okay, these are the questions we have. We have 3 questions here. 1, 2, 3. So let's try to solve these 3 questions and see if our answer is the same as this. If it's the same, let's comment if we get it, and if it's not the same, we can drop comments so we can solve it together. And we'll post. Thank you. The next, we are going to stop here. I'm going to move to the next in the next video, which is what, simplification. So we'll go to the simplification where we deal with numbers, where we take like times and the rest. So see you in the next one. You can click on the next one in the link above. See you in the next one. Bye.